Hi, dedicated artists. I'm looking forward to creating some art with you today. We are going to make mixed media seahorses. So grab your art materials and let's create. Okay, these are some of the supplies that you're going to need to complete this project. This is a mixed media project, which means it's a combination. It's mixed materials of different art supplies and different techniques. And what we're trying to do in this project is create texture. So texture, as we know, is how something feels. So this will have a three-dimensional quality to it when we get done. So you're going to need some thin cardboard. It can be a cereal box, okay, something that you can cut out one side. It can be a snack box. Just don't want to use anything that's too hard, like a hard, thick cardboard, because it's going to be difficult for you to cut through. You're going to need scissors, obviously, to do your cutting. You're going to need a pencil to do the sketching of the seahorse on the cardboard. You're going to need glue to glue down some of the found objects that we're going to put onto the seahorse. You're going to need acrylic paint, and you're going to want to try to use acrylic paint if you have it, because it's going to stick to the seahorse and the found objects, so that's preferable if you have acrylic paint. If you don't have acrylic paint, I'll show you an option at the end of the art lesson that you can do if you don't have that type of paint. You're also going to see if you have some lace or netting. Sometimes food items, vegetables, and fruits come in a netting from the grocery store, so you can use that to add on to your seahorse. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. And the last thing is found objects. So these are things that you can gather up around your house that we're going to add to the seahorse to create texture. So I have some shells that I collected last summer. I was fortunate enough to go to Florida and found all these really pretty shells along the beach, so I'm going to use these in my seahorse. I also had some of these wooden shapes that I'm going to use along with this little gem. I have these variety of different beads that I'm going to use. I even have this little tiny silk flower. So just any items that you have lying around that can become part of your sculpture. You can even go outside and grab some sticks. We just want to add a texture quality to your piece of work. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to draw the seahorse onto your cardboard. So by now you've cut out a piece of cardboard from your cereal box. And what we're doing is just creating a very simple shape of the seahorse, because we're not interested really in all of the details. It's just going to be a silhouette. I have included some lines on the drawing, just how we might want to have a reference point when we start adding our found objects. But really the details on this are not important. So we're going to start off with first creating a half circle at the top. So I'm just using Sharpie on mine just so that you can see the lines a little bit better. Okay, like a rainbow shape. Then you're going to take that line and you're going to come down into the front part of the seahorse and just curve it like that. Then over here, this line is going to come down and it's going to go out just a little bit, but then we're going to come down straight all the way to the bottom. Leave yourself some room because we have to do the tail that kind of curls around. Now go back over here to his nose, and you're going to bring this line back in. So it's almost like making a rectangle, very thin rectangle, and then curve it right there. So just come in and curve it. Now your line's going to come down and it's going to go out a little bit. So now we're making the belly. So bring your pencil down, curve it, now come back in and stop. Now we're going to make the tail and it curls around. So we're going to start here. We're going to come down and we're going to curl it around like a roller coaster and then stop. I teach my students to do this and I tell them it's like a roller coaster. It goes around, stop. Now we're going to go in reverse. So now put your pencil point right there where you stopped and you're going to continue. You're going to go back the other way. So now the roller coaster is going in reverse and it's going to come right back up here and connect to the body. So the hard part's done. Now, even though the eye is not going to be seen, you're going to put one of your found objects there. We're just going to draw it in now as a reference point. So put the eye right up at the top. Okay, now we're going to do these little scalloped edge ridges coming down. So just go up with your pencil and almost like making a smiley face, go back up. And you're just going to continue that, going almost halfway down your seahorse. Now here's where we're going to put the fin in. So the fin is going to be 2 curved lines that come out, one here, one here, and then you're just going to connect it with a wiggle line. Now we really only need the silhouette of the seahorse, but I am going to go in, I'm going to put some of these details because you might want to highlight those with the found objects that you use. So we're just going to bring some lines down here. They go to the point of each of those little scalloped edges. Inside the fin, you can add a few lines. And then I'm going to add this little curved part of his belly here. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go down, kind of go in a little bit, and then go to the end. And inside of there, I'm going to do very slightly curved lines. Again, this might be helpful when we're adding some of those little details, the found objects. It may just be covered up. And that's the final part of drawing your seahorse. Okay, so now comes the fun part, and we get to add all of our found items to our seahorse. I did find one of those vegetable netting bags, and I just kind of cut them into smaller pieces here to add onto the seahorse. I have all my found objects out. I have my glue, and I have that ribbon tool that I'm going to use on there. If you don't have the ribbon tool or lace or even the netting bag that I was speaking of, you can even take something like a plastic bag and just crumble it up and glue that onto the seahorse just to add some texture on there. When you use the glue, you're going to want to use something like Elmer's glue, not a glue stick. You need a liquid glue. And you may even want to use, if you have one at home, a glue gun. This, I would advise you use adult supervision because the glue gun can get very hot. We don't want anybody to get burned. The nice thing about the glue gun is it will stick items on that may be a little resistant with the regular glue. So probably something like the plastic bag, even the seashells might have a better job done using the glue gun. But again, please use adult supervision. Also, when I was looking through all of my art supplies, I found that I had a pipe cleaner. So what I did was I cut the pipe cleaner into small pieces, and I might add them up at the top. Even bent a few of these. I might want to add those on there. Again, you don't need to be concerned with these little details about filling them in with different shapes. The goal of this is to cover your seahorse with a lot of different textures, because then at the end, we're going to paint it one solid color. So what I like to do first, before I actually start gluing things down, is planning ahead. So I put my little rhinestone on there because I know that's where I want it to go. And before I start gluing, I'm going to plan all of my different objects on here. And this is the fun part, because You're just trying to see where things look best, and you want to do this before you start gluing in case you want to switch some things around. Now maybe I'll kind of put that little netting on here. And something like this where it extends off the side, once it's glued and once it's dried, you can go in and you can just trim up those edges so that it doesn't fall beyond the silhouette of the seahorse. I have these very interesting little beads that I can use in here. Again, I'm not going to worry about colors because the whole entire sculpture is going to get painted one color. So this is more about using different textures, different shapes. You're not going to see the original colors on here. So once you think you have everything kind of figured out of where you'd like it to be, you can start gluing your items on. Don't need a lot of glue, especially for these little tiny items. What's nice about Elmer's glue is that it does dry clear, so don't worry if you do get a little too much on there. It'll dry clear and the paint will cover it up. The wooden shapes, very easily can put those on here. I didn't go looking for like any buttons, but buttons are another fun thing you can add on. If you don't have a pipe cleaner, you can take little tiny pieces of maybe cardboard, maybe even like a Q-tip. We talked about going outside and getting some tree branches, little tiny sticks. You can bend those and glue those on. You just want to have a lot of fun exploring, looking for things around your home that you can use and adding the texture and all these items onto your seahorse. So I'm going to finish up gluing mine and I'll check back with you at the end and then we'll be ready to paint. Okay, so we're all done gluing on our found objects and our seahorse is looking pretty terrific. So I'm going to give you 3 options for completing the seahorse. Okay, you can leave the sculpture as it is. I realize that some of you may not have the acrylic paint at home, and quite honestly, I think it looks pretty terrific with all these different shapes on here and different colors. I like how we recycled some of these materials. So if you want to leave it exactly how it is, I think it looks awesome. You can leave it that way. You can also use markers or cut paper to embellish and add some color to your seahorse sculpture. What I did was I looked in a magazine and I just found a colorful little page and I just started ripping out some of these little pieces. If you don't have any colored paper at home, this is a good solution to that. And what I can do is I can take a little bit of the Elmer's glue and just fill in any little areas of where I see that kind of boring cardboard color. And you can just do a little collage of colors that way. Might be a fun way to add some color onto those little sections. You can also use, if you have these at home, permanent markers. Some colors will show up really well, preferably the darker colors. And you can just go right on top of those cardboard areas and color it in. And you can see you're going on a brown surface. You're not going to get the really true color, but it helps fill in. If you have the metallic Sharpie markers, they work really well, or any type of metallic marker. It's almost like a paint marker, and that will cover that up. So just another option that if you don't have the acrylic paint, you can certainly use those items to add some color to it, or again, just leave it as it is because I think it looks, you know, kind of nice with those found objects. But if you've decided that you have the acrylic paint and you want to paint it as the third option, like we said, make sure that it is an acrylic paint. That is the type of paint that's going to adhere to a lot of these found objects in here, especially the plastic and the materials that have more of a material feel to them. You're definitely going to want to use the acrylic paint. So I'm choosing this really pretty fuchsia color, and I'm going to mix a little bit of the white. I'm trying to create almost like an ombre effect where I go from a little bit darker to a little bit lighter. And we know from class that's value, the lightness and darkness of a color. Now if you have this type of stiff brush at home, this is a better type of brush to use for a project like this because it allows you to get into those little bit deeper recessed surfaces. However, if you don't and you just have like a traditional watercolor brush, whatever you have is fine. Even a sponge would work quite well with this. So you're going to choose your color. And again, you decide if you want it to be one color, 2 colors, 3 colors, and you just paint right over the top. So everything is going to become one color. So you're going to keep painting the entire sculpture. Get into all those little recessed areas. Dab your brush very gently. You don't want to go too hard because some of these little items might pop off. Don't forget, we only used Elmer's glue in some spots. So you want to be really careful. And the entire sculpture is going to require 2 coats of paint, at least 2 coats. So what we do is we paint the whole entire thing, 1 coat of paint, let it dry, then go back over and give it another coat of paint. So 2 layers, maybe even 3. As I start working my way down, I'm going to start putting in a little bit of the white. So I'm just not even going to clean my brush. I'm just going to dip right into the white paint. And that's going to get a little bit lighter as I go down. Again, trying to get that ombre effect. I like the way that the little lace there looks. Almost looks like a little bit of seaweed on our seahorse. Don't forget, when you're painting, also put some newspaper underneath or a scrap piece of paper like I have. Acrylic paint is fun, but it does stain clothing and it's very difficult to get out. Even some furniture and hard surfaced areas, so make sure you have everything protected before you start painting with this type of paint. So I'm going to continue painting and I'll check back with you when we're done. And here is our finished artwork. Pretty fabulous. I added a little bit of glitter paint to mine. Of course, whenever I have the opportunity to add glitter, I always do. I hope you enjoyed this project and creating art with me. I had fun. I hope you did too. Until next time, keep smiling, keep dreaming, and keep creating. You did awesome.